Do you hate networking? Because I do, which I know is weird for a career coach to say, but it feels forced. It feels fake. It feels like everyone is working an angle. And if you're introverted, burned out, or already maxed out at work, it is the last thing that you want to do. But networking doesn't have to look like awkward small talk or transactional coffee chats. It can be thoughtful, strategic, and aligned to your personality. You just need a new definition and a process that actually fits how you build relationships. So, I'm going to discuss why networking feels gross. That seems to be a popular term this season. How to reframe it and how to build a network that works for you, not just your resume. Welcome to Control Your Career. I'm Julia Toothacre, your strategic career consultant, and this podcast is here to help professionals take control of their career with clarity and confidence. And this season, we are digging into career challenges. And let me tell you, networking is one of them. And if networking is something that really makes your skin crawl, I know it does for me, you're not alone. Most of us have been sold this idea that it's all about the schmoozing and the small talk and asking strangers for favors. No wonder it feels fake. But honestly, that version of networking, it's outdated and it's not the only way. And in this episode, as with the others in this season, we are going to be using the Control Your Career process to walk through this with clarity and intention. But before we do that, we're going to go through a couple of things that I think are going to help set some context for you and give you some additional clarity around networking. So let's first start with why we hate networking. So, as I mentioned, people really think that networking means that you are asking for things. You're asking for a job, you're asking for a referral, you're asking for a favor. And that's usually what makes it feel really, really uncomfortable because most of us do not want to just come out and ask somebody for something, but that's what you get pushed to do. Now, sometimes there are places for that and there's intention for that, and that's where it's expected, but it's not always going to be that way. We have really been conditioned within the corporate space, especially, but I think just in our, American culture to think that the only valuable connections that we have are the ones that lead directly to some kind of opportunity. And that it does feel gross. It doesn't feel good. And it doesn't feel like we are building those genuine relationships with people. And so many of us want that. We do want to build an intentional professional network so that we have people that we can go to. But you have to remember so much of networking advice is built for extroverts. It's built for salespeople, and it's really for people who are they're on. They're on all the time and they're ready to network and connect and all of that. But a lot of people are not like that. And so when we're listening to all this networking advice, it's really coming from that. I think a lot of it too is again rooted in a sales process. How do we build relationships in order to get the sale? And I think that's where it does feel really yucky for so many people. And if you've been a part of this or you've been on the receiving end, many professionals will associate networking with pressure, performance, possibly even a traumatic work event, right? So a bad manager, a toxic job, fake relationships among coworkers. And so then you get that tension, right? I don't know where you feel it. I feel it in my chest when I'm networking with people and I just feel uncomfortable or I feel like I'm being played. That's what I really hate when it comes to networking. But here's the thing, like you know how to build relationships within your own professional network. You likely have been doing it. Even if you think you don't, you do. You just have to understand how you've naturally been doing it. And then maybe also do a little bit of skill building to help bring out other ways that you can connect with people in a way that works for you. Let's look at a better definition for networking, because honestly, all that is very overwhelming, what I just went over. So, networking is really about building mutual awareness and shared access over time. It's not a one-time transaction, which I think is what we have been made to believe, like I mentioned before. But this is something where we are getting to know each other. We are understanding each other. And yes, there might be an ask at some point, but unless it's a really structured situation where the intention is to ask for something, then really it's not going to be that way. It's really about building that relationship. So a couple of things to consider when it comes to networking is who you already know. So you can reconnect with people that you've already worked with, right? Because there's already a familiarity there and a level of trust that you don't have to build from scratch. Keeping others updated on your work. I think sometimes we feel like that's bragging. It's really not. It's just, hey, I've been working on this project. Have you been doing something similar? Or what have you been working on? And that's how it's conversation. That's what we're doing. And we're sharing our wins. A lot of that can happen on LinkedIn as well. I think to think about how you can share information, especially within your industry, within your function, with people who you're already connected to. There's always something going on. There's always an article. There's always a new tool. There's always something happening. And so what can you share with people strategically to understand their thoughts and what they think or how it's being implemented in their organization? So you have to remember that this is about strategic visibility. And I know you've heard me say that in other episodes this season. We are being strategic about that visibility, and we're staying connected with people consistently. Okay, one thing that I'm going to share with you in this episode that's a little bit different from my other episodes is I'm going to share 3 different networking strategies that are personality based. And I think what this will do for you is it will help you kind of categorize yourself. And then it'll give you different traits and approaches that are going to work best for you. Because again, most networking strategies are built for extroverts and salespeople. And I am neither of those. So this is something that I feel really strongly about. Okay, so we have 3 personality-based networking approaches. The first one is going to be the connector, which is an extrovert and people-oriented. Then we have the curator, which is an introvert who is value-oriented. And then we have the consistent, which is structured and goal-oriented. So I'm going to go a little bit more in depth with each of those. But I'm sure just reading that off, you can fit yourself into one of those categories. So first we have the connector. And I talk about connectors a lot because I think when you're networking, you have to have connectors in your network because they thrive on relationships. They thrive on conversation, events, and energy. You want a connector with you if you're going to an event, because especially if you're more introverted, because they will help you get out there. The leading strategy for a connector is going to be anything that is a live interaction. Okay. So this is going to be panels, roundtables, meetups. They want to be in front of people. Now, some of the things to watch out for connectors is your energy can be all over the place and your connections can feel superficial. So for connectors, you want to work on your follow-up, make sure that it doesn't stay surface level, that you actually have some really strategic partnerships that are a little bit deeper. Then we get into the curator. So this is, again, the introvert who is more values oriented. They really want depth, insight, and trust. I would say that this is probably me. So the strategy for a curator in networking is going to be one-on-ones. It's going to be more in-depth connections that could be via LinkedIn, via email, and really thoughtful follow-ups. So I would say while connectors will connect broadly to people, curators are going to be much more intentional about who they are speaking to so that they can get into conversations and go back and forth and be really, really intentional. However, one of the things to watch out for as a curator is you might wait a little bit too long to reach out because you don't want to bother anybody. And you might be looking for that perfect interaction or writing that perfect message. And really, you just have to make the leap. You have to take the action. So curators can really hold themselves back in a way that connectors won't. But curators can go deep. So that's one thing to remember. And then we have the consistent. This is somebody, again, who is structured and goal oriented. So this is somebody who's really good at systematically networking with people. They plan, they track, they probably have a spreadsheet and a system. Okay. So their strategy is they're going to have specific networking goals. So they're going to have monthly connection goals. They're going to have like templates for checking in because they're going to be so prepared. They're going to have basically processes that they can repeat and get into. So the downside for someone who's a consistent is you might not be building the strongest relationship because you're treating people like a task instead of a person. And so I think that's where consistents have to take a step back and go, is this a good follow-up? Like, yes, you can have a template to check in, but also taking some time to personalize that template and make sure that it works for the person that you're connecting with. So of those three, which one do you connect with most? Because once you understand that, then you can look at the strategies and make better decisions. All right. So now let's step into the control your career framework. And for some of you who maybe aren't quite sure which personality you are, this information might help as we go into the control your career process. So first, let's look at realistic reality. Stage one. What is actually happening in your professional network right now? So who is active? Who are you speaking to on a regular basis in your professional network? Now, it's important to remember family and friends can be part of your professional network. So don't count them out, but understand who you are speaking to regularly. Are you leaning on any one person or group? I know a lot of times we think that our team or our manager is going to help us be visible in the workplace. We talked about visibility in another episode, but they might not be. Everybody's still out for themselves, right? So you have to understand in your workplace, who is somebody that you can connect with? Who is somebody that speaks positively of you? Or do you need to build that? That could be a goal. Do you feel isolated or behind when other people seem to be really on top of their network? And so this, I feel a lot of my clients feel this way. They feel like their network is not warm. Because they really haven't been doing the work. And so again, this is the reality setting of the state of your network. So do you have people you're talking to or don't you? Because those starting points are going to look different. Also consider this. I think we have two different types of networks. We have obligations. So we have people that we are not necessarily obligated to, but I would put them in that category of they are, a past coworker, a past manager, maybe somebody I met at a conference who's in my field, or a family member or a friend or something like that. But they're somebody that you're connected to because of something else. versus somebody who is more like a collaborator, somebody that you really are connected to intentionally because of the type of work that you do or that you sought out, that wasn't just somebody that was part of whatever situation that you were in. So really think about those types of connections, because it might be that you're really well connected to people you've worked with in the past, but those people are not going to help you get to the next step. So we need to then broaden out into people who are going to be more like collaborators for us. It's important to remember that in order to build a strategic network, not just a professional network, but a strategic network, you have to audit what is currently happening. So many people think that they don't have a network, and they do. They just haven't connected with them in a long time. And so that's what you really have to determine for yourself. Okay, so now that we have an understanding of your reality with your network, we want to look at our identity analysis, which is stage 2. And this kind of goes into the 3 networking approaches as well. I think this will help you be able to define that a little bit further and a little bit deeper. So you want to understand of your personality, how do you naturally build connections? So you want to look at your energy. You want to look at, do you like one-on-ones? Do you like events? Do you feel exhausted when you have to be on? Do you get energy from being in front of a group or a crowd? If you're familiar with Myers-Briggs, this is really the difference between an introvert and an extrovert. So if you know that for yourself, that's going to be one of the first things to define. You want to understand your communication style, right? So are you good at following up? Are you somebody who can check in with people really regularly? Do you need to have some type of touch point? I have friends who really love to jump on a Zoom and talk face to face because we live in different places, but have a hard time with text message. And I know that. And so I really try to make an intention to connect with them and put something on the calendar. I have a couple of friends that we have a regular calendar meeting every month because we just know that our schedules are crazy and we are committed to staying connected with each other professionally and personally. And so understanding what is helpful for you. For me, if it's not in the calendar, it's not happening. I'm not really good at following up. And I understand that about myself. You want to understand how you approach trust when it comes to building relationships. So people who are really good in like event situations, they have this ability to build trust very quickly. And I've watched it happen in events, and it's absolutely magical when you see it. But if you're not like that, it can be very intimidating. So I'm not like that. I'm in a group situation, in an event, I'm very much a wallflower, kind of just stepping back and observing and seeing what's happening. So it takes me a little bit longer to build trust with people because I just don't have the same approach style that I've seen with some of my friends who are really good at working a room, essentially. And you also have to understand, so that's how I present, but also what do I need? So I do better with a one-on-one relationship than I do with a broad reach. And so understanding that about yourself allows you to network in the right ways. And then looking into your past, what has worked well for you? What do you gravitate toward? I really love one-on-one. I would, I kind of joked about the coffee chat, the transactional coffee chat, but I actually do love a coffee chat. I'm just not going to make it transactional. It's going to be intentional. We're going to talk about what is the purpose of us getting together? Is it just to catch up? Are there specific things? I try to be really intentional about that. So you want to understand those preferences for yourself and how you build these relationships. Remember, you're building this for you. You're not building it for somebody else. You have to understand who you are and how best to go about this process, or you're not going to do it. And then you're not going to have a professional network that you can lean on when you do actually need it. Okay, let's talk about goals with networking. This is so important. And I think if we don't look at our goals when it comes to networking, then there is a really big disconnect between why we're doing it. And it does feel very surface level, and it does feel gross because we just feel like we're doing it to check a box off. And so stage 3 in control your career is purpose-driven plan, which is essentially building out your goals. So I'm going to give you some ideas of goals that might work for you. And again, based on your situation, you choose the one that works best. The core question here is, what do you want your network to do for you, and vice versa? So how do you want to help others within your network? Do you want more visibility, mentorship, new opportunities, thought partners? That's really important to distinguish, because that's going to lead who you are actually searching for and who you're going to reach out to. Are you looking for people who are going to help advance your career, who are really good connectors for new opportunities? Or are you looking for people who are going to help you grow as a professional in your field, right? People who you can have really good conversations with about what is going on in your function or in your field. And then I think getting really clear on what is the actual help that you need, because a lot of times people say, you need a network, you need a network. Well, why do you need a network? So what is going on right now that you're like, I need to build a network? If the goal is, I would like, to move on from this company, then you want to be strategically connecting with people in other organizations that do the same things that you do, right? And so understanding what you actually need is important. And it's okay for it to be that. I think sometimes, again, we make it feel gross because it's like, well, I just need a new job. Well, those people are still in your field. You still want to connect with them genuinely and hope that there is an opportunity there. But if they're not in your network at all, then you're never going to know. So really understanding what kind of help that you actually need. And then again, reciprocally, like, what do you want to help others with? How can you be of assistance? What are your gifts and what are your talents? Because I think that also helps make it feel less transactional. And I know LinkedIn is a really great resource for this in terms of sharing the type of things that you're good at, the types of things that you can help with, so that people can also reach out to you. It's so important to understand what you're trying to build when it comes to your network. Again, so many times we just say, I need a professional network, or I don't have it, or it's cold. Well, you have to understand what you need in order to be strategic about that growth, or it does become very surface level and you don't know what to do with it, and it becomes hard, and then you don't do it. Okay. All right, let's step into initiate action, which, as you know, is usually where people drop off. This is stage 4, and I'm going to give you some action examples based on the 3 personality types that we identified earlier in the episode, just because I think that will help get us connected back to those. But again, your actions are going to be dependent on whatever your goals are. So for the connector, you want to look for maybe a more niche meetup event or an industry event. And then instead of just talking to everybody, which you're going to do anyway, but really challenge yourself to follow up with at least 2 people from that event. So the goal here is to go to a smaller targeted event and do the follow-up. So we're not just going to like a big conference or something like that, but something that's a little bit more smaller and targeted, and then do the follow-up. For the curator, you want to send a message to somebody that you admire, somebody that you're connected to already. Could be a former coworker, maybe a thought leader, a mentor. No ask, Nothing like that, but just something to reconnect. And it doesn't have to be somebody that you're already connected to. It could be, again, somebody that you just admire. But I think sometimes it's easier when it's somebody we already know. But just to provide an insight, maybe on a post they made on LinkedIn, or on some other social, to express gratitude to them, or even just to talk about a shared interest. And this is, again, to get you to act and not worry about being perfect, but just taking action. And then for the consistent, you're likely already doing this. Have a monthly connection log, which is likely some type of spreadsheet situation, and reach out to one person a week. One person a week with a clear purpose and a clear touch point. So this could be somebody that maybe had a promotion. You can see those on LinkedIn. Maybe you want to ask somebody a question or just share something helpful. So instead of treating them like a checklist, you're really reaching out intentionally, and you're doing that on a weekly basis to suffice that consistency part of you. Couple of other ideas that can work for anyone in terms of action would be commenting on LinkedIn posts, especially comments with substance. I think if we just say, hey, this is a really great point, that's not really a helpful comment. But I think really um, saying something thoughtful or giving your opinion or your experience, not only is that great for the person who posted it, but it also allows other people to see your comment and gets your name out there. So I always recommend that. Have a top 10 list of people that you want to really keep in touch with, or that you think you want to revive the professional relationship with, and then pick one person that you can reach out to. And then just reconnect with someone. Simple as that. Reconnect with someone and just let them know, hey, you popped into my head this week. I'd love to know how you're doing. How's the work doing? Maybe something that you know about them already that you can have a touch point with, and bring that up. This does not have to be complicated, but we have to start somewhere. And then we go into high impact habits. And I will say, for networking, habits are really helpful. The consistent really does have something in terms of creating really good habits for connecting and for staying connected with people. So a couple of options for habits that you can incorporate into your kind of professional workflow: set a 30 to 60-minute time block once a month. Okay, not a week, once a month, that you can just do connections. So you can message people on LinkedIn, you can send text messages, you can do whatever connecting situation you want to do, but you set aside an hour to do it, to ensure that you are staying connected with somebody. Keep a list of people. I would call this like a warm list. So people that you already have a connection to, of 10 to 15 names that you can then use during that connection hour to just stay connected with. And you can cycle through a couple each month. One thing that's really cool about LinkedIn is they have like the new job. It's like the new job, and then the uh, anniversary alerts and things like that. Go through those like once a month and go and like the post, go comment on the post, or message somebody. I think that's a really low pressure way to stay connected with somebody. And then I would say once a quarter, you want to do some type of really intentional connection with a couple of people. So choose a couple of people to connect with and do like a 30-minute, little catch up. And I think that'll really help you feel more connected to people, especially people outside of your day to day. Okay. Networking. You don't have to love it. Okay. You don't have to love it, but you have to stop ignoring it. Whether you are naturally a connector or the curator or somebody who thrives on the consistency, there's always a way to build those relationships that doesn't drain you or make you feel fake. And if you want to grow in your career, if you want to solve new problems, if you want to open up new opportunities down the road, you have to have this network. You have to have people that you are connected to. But you don't have to do it all at once. Start small, reach out, reconnect. We're trying to build habits, right? We're trying to build really healthy career habits and networking habits that our future self is going to thank us for. If this episode resonated with you, if it gave you something to think about, please share it with a friend or a colleague who's been struggling to build the right types of connections, to build that professional network. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so that you don't miss the rest of the season and what is coming up in the future. I also want to let you know that if you are ready to really take your networking to the next level with structure, because I think that is important, I really recommend my Network Reboot Challenge. This is something that is free. It's a 10-day challenge for you to revive and reconnect with your professional network. I will leave the link to sign up in the blog post for this episode, but if this maybe was overwhelming for you or too much, or you still don't know where to start, then that network reboot is the best place to start. And it's really just going to allow you to kickstart that network in a way that's going to feel authentic to you. Remember, you are not alone in this. You don't have to do networking the way that everybody else does networking, but you do have to start. Until next time, keep taking control of your career.